All right, now we're going to talk about nighttime. Nighttime is the right time to catch big, huge snook. Their guards are down a little bit more. They have advantages over their prey at nighttime. So nighttime is a great time if you want to catch the biggest snook you ever caught in your life. You're probably going to catch it at nighttime. You know, if you didn't catch it first thing in the morning or right at the end of the day, it's probably going to be at nighttime. And I'm going to go ahead and cover in this one where to go and seek out these big, huge snook at night. All right, nighttime fishing. It's all about the lights. All about the lights. You're finding docks with lights. You need to find bridges with lights. You need to find inlets with lights. It's all about lights because lights are going to bring prey items around. It's going to attract baby bait fish and shrimp and all those things that snook just love to eat. Love to eat, okay? So that's why you're going to have to go ahead and find these. I'm going to teach you how to catch them with using other people's lights and where to catch those and based on the tides. So tides again, you know, always about temperature. If it's too hot, too cold, you're not going to catch anything. I promise you, you won't catch anything. Snook have to have moving water. You're never going to catch a snook at the ebb tides. You're never going to catch it at the top and the very bottom when the tide's not moving. It's just not how they are. I've never caught one in 40 plus years of fishing those time periods. You're not going to catch them. In fact, the only thing I know that really bites better at no tide, you know, the ebb tide, the slack tide, is mangrove snapper for whatever it inlets. They seem to like that. But we've already covered these. You want a murky outgoing tide, the murky outgoing tide, you can have funky lures that don't really look too much. It's a reaction bite, doesn't look like anything. The clear incoming tides, you want to have something more realistic. But now what we're going to talk about is fishing the lights. Okay, what this is showing you is a dock light, a bridge light, any kind of light. And people do this one wrong all the time for whatever reason. So you have your light right here, and most people know you want to cast to the shadows and work your way back to the light because the predators are waiting in the shadows for something to come in a light and then they're going to hit it, okay? But what they forget to take into account is that this light doesn't stop here at the top of the surface of the water. It goes all the way down to the bottom quite often. Say this is 20, 30 feet deep. And the bottom is where those big snook are going to be. Okay? So you cast it right here and your lure dropped and you bounce it back. You're going to reel it back. The tide's coming this way, so you cast up current and you bounce it back to where the fish are. But you're going to miss these big fish away out here. You didn't cast it far enough because you didn't take into account that the light line goes all the way out to here, not just to here. It comes down at that angle. So you got to cast way out here and then bounce it back, with the current to catch these fish at nighttime because you're always fishing within about 3 feet of the bottom. So you want to be on the bottom or 3 feet of the bottom because that's where all those fish are going to be stacked up, all of them. So that's how you're going to fish this, is that. But people get this one wrong all the time. It's not what you see. The shadow line to you is right here. Shadow line to this snook is way out here. So you got to cast way out here in order to cover the area where all these snook are. Okay? Because they're going to be within 3 feet of the bottom. You got to keep that in mind. And here's another thing to keep in mind too, is your different baits to get down there. I'm going to cover baits more, but as a rule of thumb, if it's nighttime or the water's murky, for snook, these colors work great when it comes to these jigs, these snook jigs like this. And these colors work great too. So this is basically chartreuse again, but see how it's set up? It's a real heavy head. You want something to get down way deep and then bounce it on the bottom. But just remember some of these little tricks. It doesn't make a lot of sense to a lot of people. Why would you fish a dark bait when it's dark out? Well, they're seeing a silhouette of it against that light above them. So their perception is they're looking up and they see this thing, right, against that light. So it shows very well. whereas white is really a lot better for clear water. Here's another great nighttime scenario that you want to take into account. And let's say this is a light off of a dock. Okay, again, it's always about structure. It does not necessarily water depth, because this, unlike the inlet or the bridge scenario that I gave you, or deep water dock, this is a shallow water dock. Same deal. It's great too, because it opens up your options. The tide's coming this way. You might want to float a live bait from outside the shadow line into the light. These snook will come up and hit that. You might want to bounce something on the bottom. Whatever it is, a jig, anything like that. The snook will hit that. You might even have a mid-range type of lure, some sort of lip plug that you want to run through there. It gives you a lot of scenarios, but at nighttime, it's all about the light and it's all about that shadow line. You got to remember, the shadow line comes all the way out to the bottom, so you're casting way past it. You're always going to be casting way past that and working it back through. And when you're fishing docks, some docks have fish, some docks don't. You might have to hit 50 docks in a nighttime. So don't give up. You want to fish each dock. You want to throw to it maybe 5-6 times. You might even want to try a few different colors each dock. Maybe they're not hitting the pink that day. They want to hit a chartreuse or something else. You don't know. You don't know what they're in the mood for. So try a few different baits. Try a few different techniques. Try a few different water column levels. Try a top water. Try a mid-range. Bounce something on the bottom. Nothing bites. Beat it. But you want to be able to do that. You want to fully fish these areas first. You don't want to give up on an area. And once you figure, hey, this must be a dead zone. I don't see any bait. I don't see anything here. There's no fish. I'm out of here. But you give each dock a shot and you just keep on fishing till you catch your big old fat sow of a snook. These are just some more of those things that you really got to keep in mind. Whether you're fishing the summer, the winter, the day, the night, you really got to think about these things. You got to think about how much light, is the water clear, what are the temperatures, where are those fish at. At nighttime, fishing that shadow line, the shadow line that you see is very different from what they see depending on the depth of the water. You have to compensate for that. I cast as far as I can up current and then bounce it back. It's amazing how many bites you get way before it's the shadow line that you see. I mean way before. You cast way up and you're bouncing that. At nighttime, fishing these, you want to fish these inlets, you want to fish these docks, you want to fish these bridges, and you want something that's going to come down deep a lot of the time. If it's shallow water and you're fishing by these docks, doesn't matter. You can have something that runs more shallow. That's when maybe you want to pitch a live mullet if you're fishing live bait up there, or even work a top water. A top water works great if it's a shallow water dock that you're fishing. At nighttime, it's all about the lights. You want to find those lights. A lit seawall is another great area. And again, you're always casting up current and coming back down that seawall. So if it's a lit seawall, you can use a top water. You can use any of your mid-range baits. We're going to cover all this in a later lesson that we're going to do. But just remember, at nighttime, it's all about the lights. You've got to fish the lights. The depth, you're going to vary that. You're going to vary your gear that you're going to use too. If you're fishing docks, you better have heavier gear. You're not going to get that snook out of the pilings unless you do. Same with bridges, and actually same with inlets too a lot of times. So you just got to really think about how your gear is going to change, and everything's going to change based on your water depth, based on what you're fishing with, and based on the lights. Because at nighttime, it's all about fishing the lights. That's it for the end of this part 2, which is where to find your snook. Next part's coming up.